All right, well, it is 6:30.
Recording in progress.
So I'm gonna start the recording and call the meeting to order, Monday, January 13th, Waitsfield Selectboard. Do we have any additions, removals, or adjustments to the agenda? It's pretty limited in scope.
Was that,
Okay.
the JB forwarded us something about gravel.
Yeah.
No. Yeah.
No.
Okay.
I will take that up under public forum, but, unless somebody wants to make a motion, that's something that they can see supporting and adding to our town meeting warning.
No,
He can, as
no.
far as I'm concerned, if that's, the process is, I believe, to go out and get 5%, a petition of 5%, and I just don't know that it's even legal. So,
Yeah.
it's.
Remind me, refresh my memory real
He
quick.
wanted us to put a ballot article on the town meeting day warning about dredging the river,
Oh, check,
yeah,
yep.
so. I don't think that was in anything that we were thinking we would do. Public forum, is anybody here for the public forum? Otherwise, we will go on to the Mad River Path Waite House lease discussion. And I know we have, Misha and Mac Rude from Mad River Path. And we did have a communication from Misha, I believe, right around the beginning of the year, with some concerns mainly about storage and the rate was being charged for storage. Right?
Yeah, I think we just have to figure out whether we can afford to stay as tenants in the
Right.
building.
Okay.
A jump from $108 to $913 is
Yes.
a big jump.
Yes, well, and I think, and this is part of the ongoing discussion about updating the leases at the Waite House for those people that are just tuning in. And as part of that, there has been a regular rent increase to the office, which is roughly 150 square feet. It, probably a little bit less if it's only $108 rent. And as part of the ongoing effort to kind of spruce up the Waite House and better manage the property, one of the things that we want to get a handle on is all the storage. So in the lease, storage was written, technically it's a fine for storage. We're not saying it's fine to have storage, and that these are the charges for it. We're actually trying to discourage storage. So I think, so Misha had requested a conversation regarding what they have going on there and what they're looking for. And I agree that that's something that needs to happen, because I think we need to really understand what it is you're looking for as a tenant and what we can provide.
Thank you, Christine. So it was actually a year ago when together with all the tenants, we wrote a letter to the Waite House Commission and CC'd the select board, and I will read that to you. Said we want to begin by expressing our deep gratitude to the town for providing our organization with a warm, comfortable, convenient place to work, collaborate, and serve the community. Thank you for inviting us to serve on the commission in a combined tenant seat and for the opportunity to contribute to planning for the long-term future. Before we dive into this work, we want to make sure we have a common understanding of the foundational principles governing the shared use of property. Establishing the foundational facts will help us to move into productive work as a committee member. Below are our assumptions based on a review of the past leases. There's no current leases. Number one, the commission is following the mandate of the select board vote from 11/12/23 to restore, repair, and expand current uses. Number two, the Historical Society, Friends of the Mad River, Art Roots, Planning District, Mad River Path are the tenants of the Waite House, each assigned a specific space for use by their organization and cooperatively sharing the common spaces of the building. Number three, the spaces used in common include the downstairs and upstairs hallways, the bathrooms, conference room, kitchen, loading dock, basement, and finished and unfinished barn spaces. The clarification of the structural principles of shared tenancy outlined above will help us to better understand our role and to move forward in a productive and collaborative manner. So this was a year ago, and then following that, because we got a grant from the Rotary to purchase canoes to use for summer camp with children and to create a gear lending library, and we were moving forward with summer camp. I went to Annie, I asked Annie how to handle this, and Annie said this should be handled through the White House Commission. And these questions were really never addressed. That today was the day. We just had a White House Commission meeting, and we just started addressing some of those questions in a good way. So then later, I attempted also to say we have summer camp coming, and we need to use the barn space. What's the structure? We would never really. There was no opportunity to address this. This is all took a long time. However, the summer camp and summer camp happened. And so here we are, where the next communication that we got in return was a lease, basically saying here are the charges for use of all the spaces. So I'm not at all blaming anybody. The process is what it is, and thank you for the opportunity to express finally what our needs are, and Mid-River Path, under my leadership, has been growing to bring organization into place of sustainability. The board decided for us to expand our work to include summer programs for children, which is both a service to children and a revenue stream.
So
for the
financial
organization.
sustainability then?
Yes.
Okay. Just
Financial,
clarifying that.
organizational sustainability. We took on coordination of the Mid-River Triathlon together with 3 other organizations, with Friends of the Mid-River, with Mid-River Riders, and the Backcountry Coalition. And last year in particular, it was a very busy year. It coincided with a WARAC work with construction of 12 kiosks for 5 organizations, which is something that we inherited from a planning district that passed on to a Mid-River Path prior to my time, with building of a new bathroom at the Welcome Center, just a lot of flurry of activity. I have noticed early on, I inherited the need to do cleanup. There was a lot of cleanup from many previous years of Mid-River Path and other organizations, Chamber that lived at the White House for a long time, and working together we have organized all of this. And one of the things we agreed with Friends of the Mid-River, we use the same tools. We agreed to bring our tools together and build a tool rack at the connector space for use by both organizations. So that's something we did. The canoes were donated to us, and we purchased canoe trailer, and during the season we stored canoes on the trailer. After the season was over, we put them in an outdoor shed, which is used for storing kiosk lumber for all the kiosks in the valley, which is used by Friends of the Mid-River to store some of their materials, impermeable pavers used by Stewart MRV to store. After the season, they bring all the garbage cans and all of their materials in there, so together we fill that space. So there's a connector space that we currently use together with Friends of the Mid-River, and there's the shed space that is used by 3 organizations currently. And in a lease, we are being asked to pay for those 2 spaces, and also for footprint, for the trailer footprint, which was incorrectly calculated based on the fact that whoever did the calculations, there was canoe trailer, and then there was a utility trailer, which is mine, which was there because Josh Schwartz was using it at that time. And so that's kind of the situation. And then the question is it for sure we should be, if it's important that we pay for all the different spaces we use, we should do that. I'm gonna ask a question, is it reasonable to pay the same per square foot for the heated indoor space with electricity and lights and internet as for the three-side connector space where we use so many square feet as for a three-sided shed, as for a footprint of a canoe trailer? So this just asking you to consider those questions. Thank you.
As Kathleen mentioned, that fee was to dissuade you from using those spaces. We want those spaces open so you can get in there and do repairs and all. We do not want to use the Waite House property as common storage.
So I think the major sort of disparity in understandings that I'm hearing is that your understanding of what was kind of included in the common space is significantly different from what it sounds like the Waite House Committee and the town, or commission, and the town is understanding as
Select board.
being part of that shared space. And your understanding, I believe, includes a number of spaces that are unheated, but that the town and the commission did not consider to be part of that shared common space for common use. Is that accurate?
Or desire to have it used.
So I think that's where some of the sticker shock is coming from, is that the intention was that that calculation, whether accurate or not, was going to be a penalty for using space in a way that was not as designed. I believe
Yes.
that is what the intention was there.
The intention was to avoid the clutter on the property and to avoid have happened what happened before you all came in and cleaned up the space. And some of this seems reasonable to me and some of it seems to be like, that is concerning. Like, for example, Stewart MRV all of a sudden being a tenant on the property is interesting because I'm not sure who gave them permission to put their stuff there because it wasn't the Waite House Commission, right? So that's a problem, is that people are just doing stuff still without asking first. And I think we need to have a sense of what people need ahead of time before they go forward and do it. Because doing it first and then asking forgiveness ruffles feathers. So I think we really need to have a conversation about, I think there's like short term and what's practical, and long term about what we really want to have that place look like. I get that, like, that breezeway space, I'm calling it, between the barns, is like a use space in terms of you have tools there that you're using on a regular basis. It's not during the winter, presumably, but they're organized. But I'm also hearing you say that you're sharing it with the Friends of the Mad River, so if we're charging you that square footage, Friends of the Mad River should be paying half of it, right?
That's a common understanding that Ira and I have about that
Okay.
space. It's just unfortunate that the way it came in the form of a lease. It didn't come in the form of, here is a penalty for unauthorized use. So we interpreted it, this is a lease, this is charges, and I responded to that as it was. And also, if you'd also please consider that all the supplies, well, first of all, everything is really well organized.
It is very well
Yeah.
organized, we saw that today.
And you were there, you experienced what it was like before when it was just a trash heap.
And right now, we
No,
are,
I appreciate that it's cleaned up, but the problem that Christine raised is it did get out of control because there was no oversight over who was putting stuff where.
There were no sort of clear boundaries and rules of engagement around that.
yeah, the Stewart MRV has been storing things there for many years. And that goes back to the chamber being a tenant at the Waite House and Stewart MRV being a program of the chamber.
Yeah,
That's
but
probably,
Stewart MRV is like 3 years old, and the chamber hasn't had a rental space in the Waite House for like 7 or 8 years.
yeah, I really don't, I can't comment on that.
Yeah.
But what I do want to point out, we love being at the Waite House and working together with Friends of the Mad River and the planning district is very productive. We're getting to a place of really working together, and it's powerful. We have a weekly community lunch. We clean up spaces together. We plan together. It would be really sad to have to move from the White House, but what met our path for our work, these are the things we need. We need tools. We need to store long-term. The kiosks are in the whole valley. It needs to be central place, right, for this. Could places be found for all of this? Could we move summer camp and do it somewhere else in the valley? For sure. Could we have a shop somewhere else? For sure. But having a central location for the organization from which it can function, where it can have an office and a place where children come to, and a place where community members come to rent a canoe, that's the only thing that makes it
That brings
possible.
up another subject, and that is your summer camps and everything. We need, if you're using that area for summer camps and other such activities, we need to know that you have good liability insurance for that. That's a completely different subject altogether than storage.
And
Might
that
you
was
consider-
addressed, remember that, Fred, that
No, I don't.
I brought it up I asked the commission about use of space. The commission did not have time to address this in their meetings, and I did write to the commission saying, we have full, really
Certificate
good
of insurance.
liability insurance specifically for this, for all the programs that we are offering, so that.
I never saw a binder. Did anybody see a binder?
I didn't see it.
I didn't see a binder.
Doesn't mean it wasn't there, just didn't get seen.
And then the other question is do you have the proper zoning in place to be running the camps? You know, like, have we checked into the zoning and what needs to happen as far as zoning?
Well, camps are not really, the White House, and I don't know if you have time for this now, but the White House is, the way our camps are structured is children come to White House in the morning of the first day of camp.
Right.
And we have a meeting with parents, we pack and we leave and we return on the afternoon of the last day of camp, and we have presentation for parents and goodbye ceremony. So it's no different than in a way pick up from school or any other activity. We're not running camps, we're not sleeping there, we're not doing any activities there, but it's nice to have a space where if it's raining, you have a roof and there's a public bathroom to use for children and parents. Anyway, I think I've said everything I need to say. I love working at the White House. It's great, and if we need to pay that much money, it's more than we can afford, and we'll be forced to go elsewhere, and it would be unfortunate.
Can you find some place to store your canoes and everything over the winter?
Sure, but are there?
And other materials? Because we're going to start in the next few years, hopefully, we're going to be starting on working on that carriage barn and everything and rehabilitating it. We're going to go in this next year and paint the place. I assume the guy is going to use a spray painter. He could speckle canoes. My point is, it's not meant, our intent was not to have storage there, so that we could get in there and do work.
I appreciate that having sort of a central location can be convenient, but I think having to balance, especially if some of the materials are used seasonally rather than year-round, while I know for me at least that can be a hassle to have to store it somewhere physically separately, but it is doable and also a lot more affordable sometimes having some sort of centralized external storage option. And there is storage in the valley, I believe. But I also think it's reasonable for tenants to expect, well, to hope to have some option for storage on site, but I do think that that's something that has to be discussed and clearly delineated, like spatially, and have that be something that is agreed upon mutually rather than just assumed, because I for one, find that things tend to expand to fill whatever space they are allowed,
Yeah.
unless there is an active force that,
And then the next
It
tenant
does it.
comes along and says, well, if A
Right.
can do that, then I can do this, and it gets out of hand.
Well,
Right.
I don't agree. I think they can do it under the same parameters that we define for the current tenant. I'd hate to say, because we're gonna do work in 2 years, we can't use the space. I mean, I think if we did allow storage, it would be contingent on needing to move it out in order to do work when the time comes.
And I think we need to know who's storing stuff up front. And, you know, one tenant doesn't have the authority to give another tenant permission to do anything, right? And it's important, we want the path at the Wade House, and I am glad that there's a more regular presence from the path in the Wade House, because I think it was a real deficiency when there wasn't a person there on a regular basis representing the organization, because it is supposed to be a community building. So it makes it not feel so much like that, if that's the case. I mean, I could be agreeable, you know, like, I get the tools, and if those are being used, you know, I'm not thrilled with the canoe and the trailer. I would maybe be more amenable to shorter term rather than like every winter. Like, it's mid-January. So is this about getting through this winter and figuring it out, and then next winter, maybe they're not there? Because I'm sure you can see that when there's less stuff on the property looks better. You know, I don't know if there's room for compromise there.
is there a provision in the lease that sort of, anything by written agreement?
Of course.
Yeah, okay.
Right.
So I feel like if we can formulate some sort of ad hoc
Yeah. And
option that will tide us over until we're able to figure out something that's a system that can apply to everybody.
And I know that some of the other tenants, I know the basement, there's kind of like, everybody's got a stall going right now. Which I'm fine if it's contained, but it's when it starts going like this. And I think that would need to be covered as well, for everybody. And then, but this isn't like, okay, we, you know, if we come to some sort of agreement around this isn't like, well, they compromised on that, so let me see what else they can compromise on. I know there's some other issues at the Wade House that have become sticking points that need to be adhered to, right? Like I mentioned the fire doors, like the fire doors need to be kept closed, they're fire doors and they're there for a reason.
Fire doors have magnets.
Yep.
In all public buildings, right, so they
Mhm.
stay open until there's
Right.
a fire, so we have
But
one fire door upstairs that does not have a magnet. Could we please install a magnet
Magnets,
on the
yeah.
door? Because with the door being shut, we don't need to talk about it, we
Yeah,
talked
but
about
it's,
described
but that's,
it
so
to
the same,
Fred.
and it's the same in the basement, cause there's a cinder block on the fire door. So we need to make sure that there's a process of like, well, it's not, it takes too long to hear from the Wade House Committee. I think there's people on the committee that are very responsive. They need to hear about the issue at like a formal level, rather than have people just come up with their own solutions.
Well, and that was
Okay.
part of why it was pretty important to me when we reviewed that lease. I was like, who do the tenants call? Like, when something happens, they need to have a person, or a number, a something to reach out to, because that's part of, I mean, the contract of the town being a landlord, and the commission sort of taking care of that
I
landlord-like responsibility.
completely think we ought to have a magnet on that door. But until we do, we need to keep it shut.
Well, I've thought for a long time that we shouldn't let the Historical Society decide that the main door into the building stays locked 24 hours a day.
Which,
The main, into the,
on the porch?
no,
No,
into the Historical Society space.
That goes to like the conference room. to get through their main space there.
You shouldn't have to go up the back stairs.
Oh, you wanna
and then
leave
all
both
around.
doors open?
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
yeah. The Historical Society hasn't always been fine with that,
Oh,
as you know.
yeah, in fact, well, this is off topic, but we're thinking about putting in a museum there that is open to the public 24/7. But that's off topic.
So would
No,
it,
I'm good with that.
Yeah.
So thank you, Larissa, did I interrupt you?
I was going to say, would it, I think to have some sort of definitive next steps as to what, sort of, I wanna make sure we all leave with the same understanding of what's going to happen. Because I understand that the price tag will not work as written, but I don't know sort of what the compromise interim options are. Because if it's just the square footage for the office space that you're renting, what's the rent in that case?
There's no problem with increasing, it's very modest increase of rent for the office space. I think that if you would like for us to pay rent for other spaces, it's reasonable, but I would encourage you to assess it based on, like, what are the rates for three-sided dirt floor outdoor storage spaces? And what is the rate for storing a canoe trailer on the footprint of that canoe trailer? I don't know those numbers, but is there a comparison? As far as canoes go, the intent of the canoes outside of the summer camp is to have a canoe lending library, make them accessible so that people could come to stop by my office on Friday and say, hey, I'm taking canoe for the weekend on Lake Champlain, and for me to hand them the canoe, life jackets and pads and straps, put it on the, it's just to make outdoor recreation accessible,
And they'll hand you a waiver for a liability waiver, right?
I'm not even worried about this, to be
Okay.
honest with you, it's not how
Okay.
operate, and they just hand them a handshake, saying, have fun, enjoy, and if you break it, repair it. And of course, canoes last way longer. No, they come from the sun, right? They're made, and they last way longer if they're stored under cover. That's why I try to put them under cover as soon as season is over and take them back out once leaves are on the apple tree, so they could be under the tree, just to make them last long. Can it all be happening? It all can happen in many other ways. Just a bigger question is, what is the vision? What is the collective vision for that incredible space that could be a place that hosts historical society, a non-profit hub, a place for children, a place for community gatherings? It could accommodate all of those uses with just a little of imagination and goodwill and
I agree with you. And that's what we're working through right now.
Yeah, I think we should, and Mac, as you may know, I don't remember when you got here, we haven't been the best landlord in the town over the years. And we have a lot of deferred maintenance. So what you see is an attempt to get a better handle on being a better landlord and paying some of the costs that are gonna be necessary to make some of the repairs, the deferred maintenance that we've been doing. And try to do it in a way that does encourage the nonprofit hub, which I have always shared that vision. So this is, this isn't the final word. I think Larissa's suggesting something really good, is what are the next steps to kind of help answer some of these questions and resolve the issues.
Yeah, and I think it's natural that there's gonna be some tension as we move forward with this process, because it was kind of lawless before. And all of a sudden, we're trying to put parameters around it, so, it's gonna take some work to get there.
It's an opportunity,
Yes, there we go.
right?
Yes.
No, seriously, I think it's a good opportunity
Yeah.
to clarify. Like, I would hope as next steps, we might be able to define, are there any of those outdoor spaces that we would be okay with? I'm not on the Waitsfield Commission board or anything like, are any of those okay in the short term for storage? If so, can we designate like which one, or have a timeline of, hey, we're gonna start doing work on that building next summer, I'm making this up, next summer, so therefore, like, no, that's off limits for now, but this space, we're not gonna start for 2 or 3 years, that one would be okay. I very much agree on that. if we're gonna, kind of allow, permanent storage in an outdoor facility, that it would be at a different lease rate than indoor heated space with all the utilities and everything else that comes with it. So there's a middle ground. One thing I think we're very serious about is we need to, in order to get to that next step and better use of that space, the place needs work, a bunch of work, and that work's really hard to do when there's stuff everywhere. That's one. And the second is the visual from town. I think part of what you're hearing is we don't really like the look of having a trailer full of canoes. I love what you're trying to do with the canoes and the community you're serving and the opportunity you're providing, et cetera. But let's figure out, can we hide them somewhere where we're not seeing them from quite so visibly? To be, good opportunity to work together to figure out how do we do this to keep our prized tenants like you, and as you said, in the kind of
So, I mean, to me, that all sounds good. I think basically we just have to figure out, sounds to me like we're collectively, we haven't come to a common understanding of what we're trying to do there. I mean, if no storage is, I mean, if you're literally trying to get rid of all the outside stuff, should just tell us that and we'll go find someplace else. But if it's a matter of managing the stuff, so looks better, looks good, it's organized, tell us that. We're trying to do a good job there, organizing it.
And from what I've seen at least
Yeah.
today, it was really well, and there wasn't any problem getting access to the space. Everything was really well
I
organized.
think it's much better than it was.
Oh, yes.
But, if it's not what you as landlords want there, then just tell us and we'll go do something else. But, and then the other is just to look at the rents. I mean, obviously, the building needs work. Whether that work can be done with the rents that you collect from all these nonprofits is probably not, not where you're going to end up.
Yeah.
So, it's ultimately for us, it's just going to be a matter of what's a reasonable rent. And so, I mean, the way the current lease is proposed, it's $168 for the office, which is great. I mean, yes, it's more than it was, but it's fine. $750 to store the canoes there per month. I think we could do better
I think you
someplace
did
else.
too. I think that was
Yeah.
that was the purpose.
Well,
So
which won't be as good for the program. I mean, but we can do it. If
the
that's-
storage part, I think, was the I don't think the intention, and I can't put words in the
Right.
mouth of the commission, was
Yeah.
to chase you away as tenants. I don't think that was the
It's,
intention.
yeah, not to discourage storage. And I think, up front, knowing what it is, what the vision is helpful,
Mhm.
rather than being like, oh my God, there's all these canoes here, what are they doing here? And I know and I think summer might be different than winter, but again, then we get into the mowing the lawn, I was revisiting one of those emails, I know it was a problem to have that in the space, cause then it becomes something to work around. So I think we just need to be really clear, I'm assuming you're not gonna try and store anything else now. There's what we see is everything that you need there, or and if there is more, I think that needs to be a conversation first before it shows up.
Well, we just got a grant for 3 e-cargo bikes, one for each of the Wade House organizations, so that when people come to work, they could leave their cars and travel through the valley by bike, modeling that, and so those would naturally fit really well in the connector space, and the wiring could be done. That was part of the grant. There's money available to do that for charging, and that will be available for town employees as well,
Right.
if they wanna walk across the street. So we don't have to discuss it now, you guys have a lot to do.
Right, yeah, but don't go installing any charging stations
No,
before
no.
you talk
Of
to anyone.
course.
in town.
You know,
Because we've actually talked about taking that section out. We don't
Yeah,
know how we're
that-
gonna use that section. So,
Yep,
Yeah.
I hear all of that. I did not intend for it to be this way. As you saw, I brought everybody together, and together we formulated questions. We wanted to do all of this in an organized way, but we didn't have answers. In the meantime, the work continued, so the speeds at which my work continued at the path and the speed with which decisions are being made, they did not match, and that caused
Significantly
this.
different.
That caused this, and we don't need to dwell on this. You know, I like to organize things and I like to work together with others. We think we're doing a good job at the White House, and we're enhancing the space together with others. So thank you for taking time to hear it, and I just.
I do have to say though, and I think the e-bikes sounds really cool, and I think having a charger for them would be great. I'd love to have a EV charger there, we tried to get one here. But that's the kind of thing that, when we're told after the fact that there's this grant, instead of saying, hey, there's this opportunity, I'd like to submit a grant, would that be okay? That would do a lot to improve communication.
Which I realize perhaps does not move at the rate that the Path Association wants to move, but that's the rate that the democracy is moving, and I feel like there's middle ground, but yeah.
we need to know ahead of time what's
Yeah.
happening there. We feel that we aren't in control of the events there, and we are responsible for it all ultimately. We don't get the feeling that we get the feeling that we're being told after the fact, continuously.
Gotcha, thank you. I would love to come and give you an update on what the plans are going forward, and just maybe do a quick review of the past year as it relates to the town of Waitsfield. Just invite me, I'll be here.
Excellent. All right, thank you, and I know you're late for your other
Buzz.
meeting.
Thank you.
Their lease goes, the commission will deal with the
Commission
revisiting
needs
the lease.
guidance from here.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we can discuss, we can take some time to discuss that
But that-
now, or we can
I know we've got a
do it
lot on
next
the
week,
agenda.
or-
Contract.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Huh?
Contracts, executive session
Okay,
for the purpose of contracts.
okay. All right, we will do that, and then, move on to budget.
Yep.
Brian circulated a draft.
Yeah, and there were a couple of things that changed. Like I said in the email, I started this on some sections and then realized that as doing cut and paste and stuff, I didn't go in and understand all
Like
the
what the formula
formulas.
is, oh,
So I kind of tried to reconstruct it. It's still a work in progress. I'll get it done next day or so. But I did put new proposed budget for so I compiled everything that we've already worked on. So this is the complete set of expenditures for our budget. And it includes the sections that we've worked on, all the town operations, road and fire. And then I added new proposed FY '26 numbers for employee benefits, public safety, dues and assessments, special appropriations, and miscellaneous. And Josh has been working on the capital stuff, which we now have a draft of, but that wasn't circulated.
So
Good
the,
morning.
okay, so the first tab, this column should read FY '26 proposed.
FY '26 expense detail.
Right, but the gray column there, column D, that should be FY '26. It says FY '25, right?
No, column G.
Oh wait, why am
Yeah.
I not seeing anything in column, wait?
Yeah, there's 23, 24 actuals in D and E. F is this current year 25 budget, and then G.
Is 26 proposed.
That's the FY '26 expense summary?
That's the tab.
Oh, yeah.
The expense detail, is that
Yeah,
what
yeah,
you're
I'm
talking
sorry.
But
about?
no,
That's right,
I was
that's right,
looking, no, I'm looking at the expense summary.
No, I should be on the expense detail.
Okay,
sorry.
but on expense summary,
That's not changed.
but this is from FY '25 or FY '26?
My guess is you
The
haven't
first
gotten to
tab.
that yet.
Sorry.
You know what it may be? I have not worked on the expense summary.
Yeah.
Oh,
But
okay.
it may be linked to the expense detail.
Okay,
So it may be
So we're going-
changing as I'm changing numbers.
okay, so we're starting on the FY '26 expense detail
Yes.
tab. And this is not, no, it is a Google Doc.
Expense detail,
Well, I just sent an Excel.
expense detail.
You can
Well-
open it in Google Sheets, but I don't think it's gonna be linked the same way.
Right.
Okay, cause,
Anyone makes changes.
all right, sorry. Okay, expense detail. Do we just wanna go through?
Want to go down to employee benefits? I think we've been through the rest. We should revisit it all as a whole.
Mm-hmm,
But let's get through the next round of,
Okay.
new numbers before we do that.
so we are on
Employee benefits, which is
row,
140.
140, got it. 140 is workman's comp.
employee benefits starts on you're on the third tab, expense detail.
Yes.
Starts at 134. Right?
Yeah, there's kind of numbered rows, and then there's the spreadsheet,
Yes.
134, 140. There's, like in
Oh, that's right, I'm sorry.
spreadsheet's 140
I
and
was looking at the spreadsheet row, but it's row 134 on the budget.
Okay, that's not confusing.
So is that an actual quote?
Which,
Or the significantly higher health insurance, the
Yes.
192,
Mhm.
I
that's
said I
based
wanted
on
to confirm it.
premium increase.
Mm-hmm.
Holy,
yeah,
wow. That's a 50% increase
In a couple of years, yeah.
in 1 year,
Health insurance.
70
Oh,
grand.
I'm looking 100% increase in 3 years.
Yeah. And that's through Vermont League of Cities and Towns. That's presumably that
Best.
they would have negotiated as best they could
Mhm.
on behalf
Yeah.
of lots of us.
That's why your
The-
school taxes go up so much every year.
Crap.
Yeah,
That's insane.
and quite honestly, I mean, the thing to do there, which is kind of too late in the game, it really needs to happen in the spring, and it's something that we wanna do, is look at the personnel policy. And, you know, right now, we kind of like, there's language around the platinum plan, and I think people just focus on that, and I think there's ways to save money and protect our employees as well. But it takes time and creative thinking.
And a number of towns, including, I don't know when they did it, but I know a number of towns have recently moved away from offering the platinum plan and offering a lower, higher deductible plan, but also contributing to NHSA or
Yeah.
HRA.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And they found savings there.
yeah, and I don't know about percentages, that came up in a side conversation, but state employees, all school employees, they're all paying 20%. And ours pay, I think it's 13% for a family plan, so it's not uniform across the board.
It's 95 for a single,
Yeah.
94 for a
So
couple.
employees might only pay 5, 6, or 13%, whereas most, if you're a state employee or you work for a school district, you're paying 20%.
For a family.
For whatever you get,
Regardless.
whether you're single with a platinum plan, or whether you're a family on a silver high deductible health plan, you pay 20%
Yeah.
Is
of
there
your
anything that
premiums.
says that it has to be health insurance through, I don't know, I've been, this is probably not for right now, the risk pool that Vermont is drawing from for the state provided health insurance is a risk pool that is getting increasingly expensive to pay for because it is getting older, so I don't know if they're.
We haven't had community rating in like 25 years, so it doesn't matter.
Oh, okay.
But yeah,
And is this, do you know, or to your earlier thing, hey, there's ways we could restructure the offering to probably save some money. Is our open enrollment like on a annual basis, or is it actually match our fiscal year? Like, did we just go through open
I think
enrollment?
they just
like-
went through.
Yeah, there
open
has to
Yeah,
be
it
a
was
enrollment.
October
declaration
was
in
kind of the,
December.
Yeah,
So we're kind of
Until
too
you-
late
Yeah.
for this
Yeah.
budget year.
yes.
Okay.
Although, something could be done to impact the second half
For
of the
the
budget
back
year.
half of the year.
From January 1, 2026 to June 30th, 2026. So there's work that can be done to change it for the second half of the year. Whether I would change the budget number or not is, I probably wouldn't.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I wouldn't, but it's, we should put that on our work plan, cause otherwise we'll end up at budget
Yeah.
time next year saying, oh, we missed
Well,
the window again.
And all said and done, I think we were still only at a 4% increase until you added in your,
Correct.
Well, and also this,
the way that you wanna do the
the capital.
capital.
our,
See it,
our,
but I disagree
our
with
fourth
that.
road crew member was to getting the buyout too.
Yes,
And this is anticipating a family coverage for the fourth road crew.
Crew.
So that's a bump of
Yeah.
like $38,000.
yes, close to $40,000.
Oh, so this is not all premium increase, this is part change in our
Yes, yes,
enrollment.
yeah. So
Yes.
we lost a buyout and we got a family, which may or may not happen.
Right,
And
but
also,
we have to plan, we
Andy
always have to plan
was
for it.
not, so our actual for last year was less because she didn't have a family plan. I don't remember if she bought out or did a single or double, because I know Bill was
Yeah,
covered.
I don't know.
Okay.
So
But yeah,
that's
we
a-
kind of budget for the worst
Worst case
in this
scenario,
one,
yeah.
because it's a $40,000 line item if you hire an employee says, I'm gonna get a family plan. And you've budgeted for a buyout, that's like a $38,000 difference.
So one possibility actually is, so this anticipates the family for the for the administrator. The treasurer is not taking part-time. The clerk is a family, JB and Josh are both buyout, and then we have two families and one single on the road crew. And what this includes is just an extra half-year single as what we've done in the past, but we don't necessarily need to do that. We could carve another $8,000 off of it.
Yeah, but ultimately, I think leaving that as is and being at 4.8%
Where are you getting the 4.8% at the bottom?
at the bottom.
Okay.
I think, 4.8% is certainly less than last year, although I don't remember our
No.
increase being that high.
Last year, there's something's off in the 2024 numbers. In the town plan, we were at 2.676 in '24 and went up to 2.752 in '25. That's like a 3% increase.
I just remember being impressed that it like tracked with inflation, it was actually
Yeah,
less
so
than inflation.
in the 2024 actuals, Steve gave me in PDF form, and I changed them in all of the other spreadsheets, and so they need to be rechecked.
Yeah, but
Oh, so that could have been just that we underspent in
F-
2024?
no, FY '24 was 2676901.
That's what was.
But
budgeted.
FY '25 is correct in that column, so you're looking at,
You're talking the FY
ele-
'24 budget, not the actual.
I'm talking, yes, the budget.
Yeah.
So the increase between the projected budgets was not that 11.8%. It
Right.
was lower. However, from this current projected increase versus last year's $2,752,344 is only 4.8%. That would be correct.
Yes.
But
So,
for
And
conversation
there
around
might be
reserves.
some,
yes, but
what you said.
again, well, he was saying, I pointed out that the way that Chach has proposed the reserves, that doubles the projected spending increase, and I disagree with that method of doing the reserves. Like a reserve, you don't fund what you're you don't change your reserve contribution based on what you're spending in any one year. It's supposed to be like a consistent amount, you build up your reserves. Sometimes when you spend, they go lower, sometimes when you spend, they don't go so low. So I could see if we know there's expense, I could see based on cost increases we see coming down the road, increasing those numbers a little bit. But just because we're gonna move up the purchase of a $75,000 truck, I'm not gonna advocate increasing our reserve contribution by that $75,000. That's the whole point of a reserve, is
I
that we're
would
not
only do that
increasing it through the budget
If
every
we had
year.
a big windfall at the end of the year.
Yeah, and
which we may.
and we know we have unreserved fund balances that we can use, so that's the other thing.
Yeah, that's the key. I guess clarification is, so I don't disagree with what you just said, but in last year's SIP plan for 2026, we were covering more through appropriations, and that was keeping kind of the reserve transfers flat, but then we were paying for the truck out of appropriations, like in the, rather than funding it through
We
reserve.
split it, right?
Some
Wait,
things were split, so
Yeah.
it was, to me, it was a little bit artificial. Essentially, we were under reserved.
Truck, we're under reserve for fire department, no doubt
I
about
didn't,
that,
and I didn't
but,
try to make that all up.
yeah, that's not gonna happen.
But for the road department, where there's more near-term expenses in the next, 3 or 4 years, we are significantly under reserved. So I'm unclear, what your point of don't change the reserve, if we don't have the cash in their reserve account, then the only other way to pay for it would be through an appropriation.
We had that reserve though, or near to it.
We had what?
The way that you did the reserves, what I saw was, so we're down at highway equipment, heavy equipment purchases, transfers, payments that are reserved.
Are you looking at the SIP budget or this, or the?
I'm looking at last week's, so you
The
have
SIP plan
the SIP
from
plan,
last week.
right, so this current fiscal year, we would transfer $70,000 to reserves. And then you had 150, 150, 150, 150.
Mhm.
And that 150 means that after we spent money, we would, bought these vehicles, then we'd still have 75,000 in reserve. Although
Yeah.
the truck was supposed to come in the following year.
We'd still have money in the reserve in 27, you're saying, or,
In 26.
and that may have been because there was an fiscal year appropriation. But I'm looking at now, per our conversation last week, I took out any of the appropriations. Your
And, yeah, ran
Your
it
comment
through.
was like, if it's a capital item, we should pay for it from the
Yes.
reserve, not a appropriation. So I took out any appropriations which were in there, and we would need the higher reserve amounts to cover the 2 dump trucks that are coming up in 28. We need to be building more reserve funds to cover the bigger expenditures out in 28. So to me, it's not so much about the truck this year, the pickup truck, it's about 500 grand of expenses coming in 28 and needing to be building a reserve balance to cover that. Because unfortunately, they're both in the same year, the single
I don't-
axle and the
yeah.
tandem. So
I don't think it matters so much that they're in the same year, it's like what we have that we're looking at in the next 3 years is really the problem.
So
Right.
but would you, like the reserve account, can't go negative, right? Yeah, so I'm, like, the way I've got this thing structured now, the road department vehicle reserve, which is meant to cover those items, gets down to a balance of $6,000 at the end of 2028 after we buy the two dump trucks.
Right.
I'm looking at, I think, an updated version of, that I haven't sent around, that I worked on today.
Yeah, but that's, I've been looking at the
But
email that you
conceptually,
sent.
like,
Yeah.
that can't go negative, or else we have to push out the purchase to next year or something like that to allow more time for the reserve to build. Does that
Right.
make sense?
Or, yes.
Or budget money, allocate money in the budget.
Or
But I guess what's
just
the-
allocate some of the money. I wouldn't allocate I wouldn't take a capital reserve out of the budget. I would still put it into I would still do the pass-through, just because
Yeah, you end up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
then because you're, I mean, it's all the same.
Yeah.
But Chach did increase the money that we're appropriating through the budget to the reserves has gone from 70,000 a year to 150,000 a year.
And
So-
the next version has it at $200,000
Right.
a year.
Right, which I think that starts to give me angst about the amount that the budget is increasing on an annual basis. And I know,
100% agree.
yeah, no, and I
So-
think that's a part of the conversation. And I think that's when we have to start looking at our unreserved fund balances.
Yeah.
And do we wanna allocate some of those unallocated monies towards something specific?
I
In
think
order-
we kind of,
Yeah.
if we
Yes.
have the budget
Yes.
surplus and we don't want to have an 11% increase.
Right, and
Yeah,
that's
we
why
have
this
to.
is a good exercise, because we can now say this is why we're doing it, right?
Yes.
This is why it would make sense to do that.
Yeah.
Also, this is not as big a numbers as our equipment and fire, but I'm wondering if we really need the reserves that we have. We talked, if we might want to consolidate some of them, and whether they're adequately funded to deal with anticipated needs now. Like the LaRue Park Reserve, the sidewalk reserve, what do we have in store, and are those ones that we could either take a year off or try to make a broader reserve fund to make it more flexible?
Well, and the same, you could have a,
I think there's,
like,
go ahead. Sorry.
no, go ahead.
I think there's similar questions around some of the paving and
Yeah.
culvert reserves as well, where paving, I'm guessing, kind of, the way it's been working, and I have it continuing to work, is like every other year, we're gonna do some significant paving project.
Yeah, we have a paving schedule, and if, I don't know if you've checked in with Charlie or Josh, but if they do the slow road this year, I'd be curious if that's getting us a year ahead.
It is getting us a year ahead, because it's originally here, it's in it's 2 years ahead, it's in FY '28, and so that's when we might have to say, like, doesn't work with the reserves. But yeah, I could see having like a paving and culvert reserve, like a heavy equipment reserve, and then one reserve for all the other stuff, and tracking those numbers, and, fire department reserve. But it doesn't, do we need a building reserve, a truck reserve?
Yeah.
Equipment
As far
reserve.
as what you said earlier, I think, I agree with you that you wanna stabilize the annual payments and not go up and down. On the other hand, there might be reserves that are fully funded at some point.
Yeah.
Don't need. I've been a strong advocate for the conservation restroom and recreation reserve ever since they added conservation to it. But it's never been over $100,000, which it is now. I'm gonna get a call from Kurt or Phil tonight, but is 10,000 adequate given the balance that we have in it
Yeah.
this year? I'm just thinking things like that, if we did need to start shaving.
Let's see, that, you mentioned a paving schedule, for example. I don't know if that exists also for culverts, but there's an area where, we're continuing to fund those reserves, 200 a year for pave, or at least in last year's SIP plan, and continuing in this year's SIP plan, 200 grand for paving, and
Is that something we contract out, or we do it
100
in-house?
dropping to 75 for
Contracted.
culverts.
Contract out, okay.
So, if you guys have already started working with Charlie, awesome. If not, I'm happy to reach out
On
to,
the paving?
yeah, just
Yeah.
get that longer term schedule, understand what
That-
culverts are coming up. Like,
So-
do we, to your point, are we over reserving it?
That's that, yes, we do that with them, but that's also that, there was that budget line item somewhere, and that we have a contractor that created a schedule to look at. That's the Tyler, there's a paving
Yeah.
plan that the town contracted with somebody
so
to
we
put
sh-
together.
We should review that with Charlie, I guess,
Mhm.
and see
Yeah.
what's the timing and the cadence, and
Yeah.
we can guesstimate the cost to see if, we need to continue. I guess in the paving, we probably are gonna need to continue the
Yeah.
significant reserve.
And the bridge and culvert reserve, yeah, you're going to need to continue, because there's some significant culverts that need to be replaced,
Right,
that-
so,
aren't happening.
but there's another opportunity.
And there's a big one by my house. And I know there's the North Road culvert.
Yeah, but if we could,
Um,
if that schedule exists, then we can line it up with their reserves and see,
Yeah.
are we over reserved, under reserved? It's unlikely we're over reserved, as you're pointing out. One other piece that's in here while we're talking about paving is, for the slow road paving, which used to be in 28, there was a paving grant offsetting a chunk of the cost. I don't
That's
I
not
don't think
gonna-
we've
yeah.
applied for that grant.
And we're not
yet.
gonna get, well, it's probably too late to apply for the grant. And we're
Yeah.
also probably not gonna get a grant when we already have a grant for the East
That we
Bourne
haven't
Road.
used yet. or-
Right, so it's
Yeah.
not gonna cost us $35,000, it's gonna cost us $211,000. Cause the grant, the projected grant here was $175,000 on a $211,000 project. So when, right,
This is for the slow road?
yep,
I had 350
Oh, okay.
in there. so,
Well, okay, regardless, the grant,
Significantly.
the grant was projected
Yeah,
at
understood.
$175,000.
Yeah, so the way this is structured now, it does look like with the grant we have in hand, we can, in the bids for the East Warren Road, we can cover
Yeah.
that with the, and still have enough budget, enough reserve left to cover the full cost of the slow road without a grant.
Yeah, but why
It's
would
good.
we, unless they have another project lined up that they're gonna move forward, why would we pay $350,000 for the slow road? For the privilege of doing it a year early or 2 years early, when we could spend $175,000 less 2 years down the road? And,
Because there's gonna be another crisis project
right, but
2
what,
years
but,
down the
but
road.
what, I'm saying, what is it? Why would we take on $175,000 in spending if we don't know what problem that's gonna ameliorate? And I would also say that I'm a huge supporter of our road department, but sometimes you don't get your new truck and your paving project all sped up in the same fiscal year.
Agreed.
You might have to pick.
100% agree, and my guess is, working with them on the paving plan would answer a bunch of those questions.
Yes.
Like, is there a whole bunch of stuff stacked up that's gonna, require grants and more reserve and, or not?
Right, and I could also, right, I could talk to them and I could say, right at this point, I'm probably more likely, I see that the truck is a big need, and
Yeah.
I'd be willing to move that up, but I don't think I'm willing to move up the slow road right now,
No,
2
and
fiscal years.
there are different pots of money, but
Yeah.
if we do East Warren Road, the slow road, we just did North Facein Road,
Yeah,
there's not much left in the immediate
Yeah.
term, Bragg Hill,
yeah, and
There's a-
Bragg Hill's got some big problems.
yeah.
Jocelyn
Oh,
Hill.
Jocelyn Hill Road.
Hill's been
Yeah.
on that docket.
Yeah, that
for-
thing is,
Yeah, although
in rough
that, they just did a shim job on it last time,
It's
like,
holding.
that
It's
was
holding
like
It's,
a really long time
that was a
ago.
long time ago. That
It's
was-
not, it's not holding
It's
anymore.
not holding anymore. Yeah, take a
That's-
drive on it right now.
Yeah,
The guy who lives just off Route 100.
yes, the guy who
Yeah.
never goes that way.
No, they're like skim cover.
Regardless,
thing is
even
starting
when
break
there are a
down.
whole lot of projects that are, we have to consider the,
Well, we did do that one on the cheap, and
Yes.
it held for longer than I think a lot of
Yeah.
people thought.
But I guess point is, we know we're not gonna get grants every year. There's probably more projects, significant projects, than we're gonna get grant funding for. So to me, whether we apply the grant to the Slow Road or to Jocelyn Hill or to Bragg Hill, doesn't really matter what we apply it to, as long as we can get that money at some point.
Right, that we have to be applying for grants. I still don't know whether the slow road costs us $350,000 or $175,000. I'm gonna say go for it in the next fiscal year. When we're already
Goodman
looking.
thought that it would be closer to 100, possibly.
Well, if
They
he
hadn't
can
negotiated
bring
it.
us in an estimate that's 100,000, that's a different
Yeah.
discussion.
That's all contingent on having them set up down here and whoever, Griffin or
Yeah.
whoever we go with.
I think it was Pike.
Right, yeah.
So, so is that sounds like that's an action item to talk to Charlie, which, is that, I'm happy to do if you're, but I don't wanna get your guys' way if you're
No,
already at it.
I'll be glad to join you, just to understand where things are.
And that plan should be on the server. It's Tyler's, the organization that
Do
did
you
it.
remember when it was done? Was it 5 years ago?
It's probably about 5 years, cause I think it was like right before I came on the board.
Well, interestingly,
Yes, it was
there's
right.
$7,500
Yes.
appropriation in this year's, in the
Yes,
26
and I
budget
think that's the
for a
plan, to have it updated
for
every
the
5 years.
5-year renewal, yeah.
Well, we started on health insurance.
Here we are.
We're
Well, we
killing it.
paved
Well,
over that.
we started looking at the percentage.
No, I know.
Yeah, so I think the other big question is, what do we have in our unreserved fund
Yeah.
balance, and what could we then designate towards? Do we need to redesignate that into a reserve if we wanna spend it on an item that is in the capital improvement plan, or could we still say buy that pickup truck using the undesignated fund reserve without putting it into? Like, do we,
Oh,
I think
we
I'm
could do
gonna
that.
say, I think we have enough money, cause I
Yeah.
think that's how we bought the grader.
No, we leased the grader, but we did it
Yes.
with
But we,
unbudgeted ARPA money.
was it ARPA money? There was, at one point, it wasn't, we leased it, but I think the first payment might
Yeah.
have come from a fund reserve,
Maybe so, yeah.
and I can't access my email to figure that out. But if we could do that, it gives us a little bit of a
Yeah.
cushion. And that's really what that undesignated fund reserve is supposed to
Although-
be for.
The yeah. Can we purchase it without voter approval? That's why we leased it.
That was
But we have put money into undesignated reserves.
That was a capital lease, right, where we own it at the end of the
Yes,
5-year,
and
4-year.
that's a good question. And I don't know if it was because it wasn't planned for in that fiscal year or not.
Well, good news, like, as things stand now, I know there's still moving parts and pieces in the budget, but if we wanted to stay at or below 5% increase over last year, we would need to take out roughly $100,000 from where we are today. And I think we would have, it sounds like we would have budget surplus on designated funds in excess of that.
Well, we did already from last fiscal year. We know that. And we
Yeah.
know that part of it was that $186,000 of ARPA money that we put towards that one line item, and now it's become an undesignated fund balance.
Yeah.
So we have that $186,000 of ARPA money sitting in an undesignated fund balance. We can now use it for,
I'd be surprised if there's not at least another 50,000,
Yeah,
oh, I bet you there's,
Yeah.
I think there's like 500,000.
400,000?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
I think there's way more than that.
So we could really, if, you know, maybe the answer is we just beef up our reserves in a big way. And although I still would wanna not reduce the budget by not putting reserves in, because then we're creating that problem.
Right,
of-
no, I wouldn't
That's-
not put
yeah.
money, I would actually probably increase it, but just not as much
Yeah.
as not the 200,000, right? That you put in this version of what you sent around, you would increase it by 200,000 instead of 100,000, you said?
Well, in aggregate across all the reserves, it's up like 100 and something from last year, 130 or 40, let me get to it.
Not, I thought you said 200.
We don't have
That's what
a town garage reserve.
That was for one specific account, but there was a couple others that actually went down.
Like, well, the highway equipment went up $80,000.
Should we?
I was wondering if we, do we wanna start a town garage reserve to put some of that money into that? Some of the undesignated.
I think it's probably fine, I don't think we should start another
Yeah, I think,
Well,
I think
Fund right
the
now.
treasurer might actually murder us.
It could be part of, it could be part of consolidation.
Right, well, and that's something we could do as part of that, cause I'm guessing that if we consolidate, we're gonna need people to vote on it.
Yeah,
And part of that vote could be, I think we have the policy regarding the undesignated fund balance, and we're supposed to maintain, what is it? It's a certain percentage of our budget.
Is it several months and then?
It's like, yes,
But
it's like
basically, like
maybe 3 months, so it would probably be close to
Like payroll buffer or something like that.
$600,000. So we could take anything over and above that and put it into a reserve, or use it to buy the truck. So 5% was your suggestion?
Yeah, trying to keep our increase at or below 5%. And that would, let me flip back, that would, hold on 1 second. So at exactly 5% would be like $2.9 million, $140,000 increase over last year's budget. Sounds like our actual is gonna be a little less than that based on,
yeah.
primarily on comp, probably on wages, right?
And then we need to know the impact on the tax rate.
Right, so if we, if we have the undesignated balance, there's more than enough there to bring us below the 5%.
Mhm. So, Josh, maybe we should, meet with them and then go through the total budget?
With, Charlie, you're saying with road crew, or?
Meet with the road crew and the paving and then me and you
Yeah.
take,
Yeah, and this seems like it's the revenue detail at the bottom. It seems like some of the numbers are new and some are old.
which is, where are you?
I'm on the second tab.
Revenue
F-
detail. Yes, I've started this, but this is one that I have a lot of questions on.
Yeah, cause it,
So this is a work in progress.
yeah, but it looks like, so the tax increase from FY '24 was 7%. So we could be in a good spot.
From
Kind of.
24,
Well, yeah, it's the wrong year. It's 2 years out, but
Yeah.
if we've really only increased taxes by 7% over 2 years, then we're not looking that bad.
no, that's because they'll be 2 and 5?
Hmm?
2 from last year and 5?
Yeah,
Yeah, that's, less than 1 year in most of our neighboring towns.
yeah, I mean, we're not Montpelier.
Never saw a bond they didn't want.
Ooh,
Although so last year's estimated tax rate was 59.73 cents. And this year, if this number is right, it might be 62.73, so it would be 3 cents.
But that's at the 11, or at least what I'm looking at, that's at a higher number without any undesignated balance applied.
Right,
Right.
well, and it doesn't have your, I don't think it has your capital improvement plan numbers either. Or contributions, reserve contributions is the word I should
I-
be using.
Sent, just at the start of the meeting, I sent around a revised version of Brian's draft that had those new SIP plan numbers in. And I'm seeing the same, 62.73 cents. And I think all of our expectation is with some undesignated balance applied, we can get that down in the 61 range or
Although that
something.
chart uses your 2979.
Yeah.
So that's, we should be in a pretty good spot.
Yes, so this is kind of worst case before any designated fund balance.
Yeah, but now if I go back to, it's like a 2.5 cent change in the tax rate from your original numbers to your changed number, if that's right.
Yeah, and just I have not changed I don't know if you did, Chach, the FY 23-24 actuals or 25 budget. That might be 22, 23, and 24, because I have not messed with those.
Actually, it's
capital
less
budget.
than a cent.
It actually looks like it's a little off, but it's not that much off. It's only a couple $1,000s off.
This tab actually, this revenue detail has the 2676 for last year for 25. So that part looks right. The expense
Yes.
detail had a lower number, but.
It's the
this
FY 24 that's wrong, not FY 25. And FY 26, I think Brian's original was 2,884,265, which would be a tax rate, depending, that would be less than a penny increase on the tax rate.
And that was without capital.
When Chach changed the numbers, it went to 2,979,878, and that's
Yeah.
like a 3 penny increase on the tax rate.
Right, but if I just plugged in one of those formulas, I just took out 125 grand like magic. And our tax rate is 59.5 cents.
Right, which is
Flat
what it
base.
is this year, or a little bit.
So that must be a little bit of a growth in the grand list that, yeah. I mean, that would be amazing.
I think they usually plan for like a 3% growth.
0.3.
0.3.
And last year was like a warm.
Yeah, it changes from year to year, but they do
Like
try to make it,
1% or 0.1?
No, it was higher.
than-
it was higher than I thought.
You-
It was
yeah,
higher
I
than
was
expected.
Thinking it would have to be. Cool.
So we're looking pretty good. So you guys it looks like the big question is what we do for reserve allocations or contributions.
We haven't
Right.
talked, yes.
What else
There's-
do you need to talk about?
Well, there is the rest of the budget.
Okay, well, it looks fine.
The one thing we should look at is patrol cost, sheriff is going up.
And Warren reached out about this. I think the sheriff, I was like, I don't know about this. They were wondering how much we spend and how much of a patrol presence we have. And I said, we just base it on a number and they kind of back out the hours. And then the message I got back from Warren was that the sheriff department wants us to kind of figure out a valley-wide allocation of hours, and I'm like,
Why was that coming from Warren?
yeah, that's the point.
Did you see that the sheriff did give us a report with all of their, all the tickets they issued?
Did or
before-
did not?
Did.
Did, okay.
And then they actually requested that, so there might be another conversation, but Facein has to decide, I think, also whether they want any skin in the game.
They historically have not.
I was gonna say,
Is
they-
that what we
Right.
get allocated?
We did, at one point, we owned cruisers.
Yes,
And had our
Next year.
constables work, who were deputy sheriffs.
right,
Or-
I don't,
Is this the
Think
thing
It did
Brian's
not work
around?
well at the
No.
time.
No,
because
we're
of
not-
personalities.
Looks like it.
And I don't wanna,
Yeah, 26
have that ownership.
proposed.
so that number might be something we wanna change a little
Yeah,
bit.
so,
Like, I think we've
But he
reduced
just
patrol
kept
on
that
numbers
flat,
down,
basically.
we
So
did significantly 2 years ago.
Change that, now would be the time.
bringing on the constable.
We
Well, it
paid
almost doubled too,
25,000.
their rates,
Talking about-
remember?
Yes, they went from like
$75,000.
$35 to $60.
We got a reserve amount of about 75,000, but it isn't gonna cover.
Yeah, Fred's asking about the Waite House operations and capital, which have pretty modest dollars attached, $4,000 in operations, 7,500 transferred to the capital reserve. At one point, the roof, we were looking to fund with ARPA money, that ARPA money.
We kinda had a conversation, I don't think
well,
I
that-
think we were hoping to fund it with a grant.
That we didn't get the grant as much.
We didn't get the grant, yeah.
Yes.
And one of the outstanding issues with the Waite House is it's not supposed to impact the Waitsfield taxpayer.
Yep,
So,
but we
I
own
know.
it. We own it.
We do own
We
it,
own
but
it.
I'm not gonna support $100,000 into our reserve funds. I mean, we put
No, but
money
we
in the
need-
reserves,
Right
yeah, I
now, we
know.
got, what, 7,000? Paint job that we've already talked about is 25,000. The roof is,
Well, we haven't,
we do have 75,000 plus minus in reserve, but I'm just saying,
yeah, we have
that's
enough
a
to,
very modest.
we have enough to afford the paint job.
And just for what it's worth, we put in the budget, $4,000 for Waite House operations and haven't spent any of it this year.
how? Sorry, I,
Because nobody's built anything against it.
oh, okay, that,
Which, I mean, when they come and fix the alarm, seems like,
Okay.
so I'll
Well,
talk
there's
to,
different. There's
I'm
several.
just saying that looks really modest, knowing what we got and need.
did you guys look into the grant for having the White House painted? It's a grant program through Preservation Trust of Vermont. No, no.
that's who we talked to for the roof
Oh, okay.
and had an application in. Anne Marie said that she was applying for a grant, but then backed out of it. It just was too complicated, too much.
So we've gone from FY '22 was 2,000, FY '23 was 5,000, FY '24 was 7,500, and FY '25 was 7,500. So we have increased the capital contributions over time.
I mean, would it kill us to continue incremental and go to 10?
I'd be willing to go to 10, but
Yeah,
If we go to 10, we probably have to decide whether or not we're gonna paint or roof.
we've already agreed, we have a contract for painting.
So there's 25,000.
We don't,
As I remember.
whether we paint or not, we don't have enough for the roof.
We've got to do the roof. I mean, we got plastic covering
Yeah.
half of it.
You know, the idea that it's not gonna cost the taxpayers money was a promise made 35 years ago.
Yeah.
And it's
all
up to it's up to the voters to decide, maybe we could do a special warning. And
Yeah,
have a
I'm,
hoot and holler over.
yeah. Rackus town meeting. I do think it should be, I don't think we should pass that through the budget if you wanna look to a significant number, or depending on what happens with the, undesignated reserve, maybe some of that money can go in.
Yeah.
But I don't think it should be like a $50,000 appropriation through the budget. Especially,
There's been a lot of
Those-
grant applications that have put, sort of fundraising kinds of things have happened. I know that there were lots of ideas.
And we've got as I remember, $75,000.
so,
And you know what the condition of the roof is, I don't have to
Mhm.
explain
Yeah.
it to you.
Mhm. There's not gonna be much to paint if there's no roof.
okay. What else we got, Brian?
So I think that's it for public safety. Haven't talked to the listers yet, but that's small. Dues and assessments, the big one there is the Mad River Valley Planning District really hit a cliff, the last 2 years.
Yeah.
This year, I don't wanna go into a lot of detail, but the budget was kind of opaque, the budgeting process. And there were some mistakes made, like not including a line item for FICA, which left them in a hole now, and there's no more carryover that they can count on.
Yeah, they use way too much carryover over the years.
And this is gonna, I'm hoping this is gonna set them right for a more sustainable incremental increases in the future.
So can I give one piece of feedback though for the planning district? I know that their fiscal year is different than our fiscal year. And I think if, especially with an increase like this on top of last year's increase, they need to make sure that their billing changes are concurrent with our fiscal year and when we've budgeted the money for it. Cause I think the appropriation for FY '25 increased because of, it impacted like our FY '24 budget, when the bill came out. So I think, I would respectfully request that they
Yes.
consider the other towns' budget years in their billing, and so we
I-
don't get a double whammy on that.
Yeah, one of the problems is that all the towns don't have the same fiscal year.
Right, well,
Yeah.
that's not our problem.
No, we have, yeah. So what happened last year? We paid upfront in FY '24?
However, the billing change impacted us in the fiscal year that we got a bill like right away in like April
Yeah,
before our fiscal year for the previous year was closed out at the number that they had given us. So
Ah.
the change impacted the fiscal year that was not did not have the approved number.
not all towns pay, okay, I understand what you're saying. And the towns pay on a different schedule too, which probably further complicates it for them,
Yeah,
but, we can figure that out. The good news is health
Mervis.
center's going down. For us.
Mervis or?
Mervis, yeah, I'm sorry.
Oh, looks like good news.
Oh, yeah, I thought you were talking
Haven't heard
about the
anything.
closure of the health center. I was
No,
like,
that's not
oh.
good news.
No, okay.
So
Yeah.
that's, anything else there, if you wanna, special appropriations, we haven't heard from a lot of folks, and I'm afraid that some of them might have fallen through the cracks.
I would say if there's an amount there, I would just carry
Level
it
funded,
forward.
that's what I was thinking too. I don't think anybody's not gonna, if they don't wanna bill for it, but these are all folks we funded in the past. And if they didn't get a funding last year, let's just drop them off. We do have 2 new requests,
One from
Valley
Matter
Arts
Valley Arts.
and the Historical Society,
Okay.
which our policy has been, when there's a new request, we put it on a special item.
Yep.
Makes sense.
And then under miscellaneous, the big change, so back to public safety, I put in the constable at 7,500. We haven't spent anything,
He's been doing it, just been doing things.
he hadn't been billing us,
No, he delivered
he
the
might
letter.
at some point.
He might at some point.
I mean, he hadn't been doing that much, but he was all over the covered bridge.
Yes, yeah, he delivered a letter for us,
Yep.
done a few things.
Did he get bit by a dog?
No, but I warned him. I talked to him.
Okay. And then, the big thing under miscellaneous is the cemetery commission wants to come in and talk.
Yeah.
And, there are two mistakes here. One, in this line item, trail maintenance last year was $3,000, not $2,500. And Mad River, Television requested going up to 4,000. And then we have so many different line items for insurance. I'm gonna try to figure out why the different coverages, but in the past, we've just done a percentage increase for the budget, for a lot of our insurance coverage. Not health
Like
insurance.
liability
but-
type
yeah,
coverage.
Yeah, passive,
Mhm.
passive.
How do you say it?
Was that? I don't know how you say it.
Yeah, I've always said passive.
I think that's how they call it.
Okay.
Took me a while to figure out that was an acronym.
Where does that show up?
Like, there's a couple of them.
Okay, spread around. So you did a percentage increase?
I
you said?
haven't yet, there's
Okay.
gonna be some minor changes to
Yeah.
that.
Okay.
I found a VLTC bill that was just hanging out there, so we paid it, whatever it was.
Okay.
So it sounds like we'll look at revenue hopefully next week.
So
and
we'll have some
this will be fairly
actuals.
finished.
Right, it'll need to be fairly finished, we'll have to have revenue and know the impact of the tax rate, and we should have like a sample warning.
And is that something that legal puts together? or-
Yeah, I reached out to the attorney, so we have the information that they need, although I think if it's a straightforward warning, I don't know that we necessarily
Yeah,
need legal.
yeah.
Just a good proofreader or two, because it's just a change in the numbers and the date and that type of thing. Okay.
And the appropriation is an entirely separate warning, it's not included.
No, there's, articles, so there'll be like, the budget number, there's like some standard stuff that, it's right in here. And so the appropriation would be something, it would just be added,
Okay, as one of the additional articles.
yes.
Got it.
It would be probably, it would be like Articles 5 and 6.
Got it.
And do you wanna talk about it later, a one-time White House appropriation to be voted on separately? It would tell us where the voters are now and support for it.
And how much what do you think?
I don't know, I'd wanna think about what a roof costs. We've got 72.
I think if you're talking about the expense of a roof, and I'll be honest, like, town meeting's great, but it's really not democratic, and to have the 150 people in the room decide that we're gonna spend $100,000 on the budget, when there's about, another 400 or 500 people that show up to vote on the school budget and everything like that, I don't know that I'm not gonna support a big number, I guess is my point.
So is the goal is to take the temperature of the voters in addition to
Well, and
raising some money?
to beef up our reserves to deal with some of the necessary maintenance.
Well, we said we would do 10 instead of
Yeah.
7,500, which is easy enough to spend like nothing, but, we had how many people at town meeting last year?
150. 150, maybe.
Yeah. I think I'm philosophically opposed to putting a big number on the floor vote.
I'm philosophically opposed to voting on our budget for the Australian ballot.
Which is fine, but I don't think that the 150 people that show up should get to determine what. In this, you could put one article on that, then put a more reasonable number. I'm just saying, don't put something like $100,000 out on that.
I wouldn't do that.
Like,
Yeah.
20,000.
Yeah.
Okay, let's have that discussion. But
That would give us 50. That would give us 100 with a reserve. That'd
Plus
take care-
10, we've got 72 in reserve.
Yeah,
plus
And
what
I
you're
have-
going to have after
Yeah.
this year.
So you're gonna spend some on
we
painting.
will,
painting.
Painting and roof.
And I think we need to talk about what needs a new roof. Because the carriage barn has got one at some point.
Yeah,
Basically, everything that's cedar needs to
Yeah.
be replaced.
the main house.
Well, and then the question is, does that include the open shed?
Right.
It does.
Or
It
do we
does now.
just tear it down? Because that open shed, I think the information we got was that it might not support a
Well,
new roof.
Well, that would take care of the e-bikes and,
That was easy.
and the hand tools,
Okay.
backpacks and PFDs.
All right.
Well,
We good?
that would save the paddles.
One thing I was thinking we
I'm
should
terrible.
try to do before next meeting would be to work with Steve/Sandy to get a idea of, one, how much of that ARPA money is left.
Yes.
The undesignated funds, because I think we committed some to the
So,
Children's Center.
no, so there's ARPA money that's been designated, that's sitting in that ARPA money pool, and that's like the now money, the Valley Players money, the sign money. Then there's the money that we
So
voted
separate-
on the
Coming
resolution,
from a
that's,
separate,
it's already in the
Yeah.
undesignated fund balance.
coming back to me now, okay.
Yes.
The second piece would be expected kind of surplus from this year, right? Where we should have, we know we're underspent on staffing
Right,
primarily.
so, yeah, we want like an FY '25 budget update,
Yeah,
year to date.
Right,
Yeah, some actuals would be
well, I know,
which I have.
Oh,
but that's only part of the story, then next
Yes.
would be what do we expect is gonna
Projected,
happen in the next 6
yes,
months? And where do we think we'll end up at the end of the year? Because that would influence how much we might have available to offset of reserve transfers, how much we might throw at Wade House roof, et cetera. Right?
well, the
There's another-
reserve transfers don't happen until the end of the year, and they are raised through the fiscal year money. So like, the taxes, so like the reserve transfers that are gonna happen at like the end of FY 25 are being raised through the FY 25 budget, but they're not gonna
Understood.
be transferred in until the end of the year.
Right, yeah. But at the end of 25, we're likely to have unspent kind of
Yes,
budget
right.
surplus. But when would those get, those don't have to wait till the end of the year, right? Would those get moved into a reserve if we so choose?
We
So
we
there's
put them into an undesignated fund balance,
So it would,
which we do in July.
so it would need to wait until the
The fiscal
following
year's
June?
closed for,
If we were gonna move some of that undesignated fund balance to reserve accounts.
we could do what we have there now. As long as we leave what is required by policy, by our town policy.
Mhm.
If we have money that's over and above what our town policy requires, we could transfer it to a different fund. But putting it in a reserve fund might require a vote.
Vote of the voters.
However, we might be able to just spend some of it, cause it's undesignated, it's not specific. Like, we could say, if we had an expense, unexpected expense that came up right now, we could spend it on that possibly.
Mhm. How do we figure that out? Is that a Sandy question? Is that a VLCT question?
How much we have in there?
No,
How much
just-
we have is this.
No, not how much we have, just what are the
What are the options if we?
rules and regs around spending?
Map.
Like you mentioned earlier,
Mhm.
could we use some of that to just buy the pickup truck and not have it go through the whole reserve
You can ask
thing in
a,
and out?
you can ask a question on VLCT's.
Yeah, and they might
website.
say, da-da-da-da, consult your attorney.
Well, but they have like staff attorneys that you can
Yeah,
ask
they have the
to,
municipal laws.
you know,
Yeah.
the Municipal Assistance Center, MAC, or whatever.
All right, so are we good to move on? It's after 8. So
Yeah.
on to select board roundtable, and I just put in a note in here, because there was the, incidents of check fraud. Steve spoke to the bank, and there's like a check and ACH protection he can put on the account. And it's like less than $100 a month, and I don't think he needs our permission, but we were just, and I said, I can't imagine anybody's gonna object to it. But it's like, you know, the bank lowered it for us, I think the ACH protection's about $20 a month, and then the check is per check, but it comes out to about $60 a month.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Sign up.
Yeah,
As soon as
that's,
we
yeah.
can.
Yeah, how much was the check for? That was,
It's like 2,400.
Yeah.
I should, Jennifer showed me a copy of the check. It should never have been cashed.
right.
The woman.
Was
put
it like
her
white out?
Yeah, it's a sticker with her name and address and driver's ID on it. And she said that the police said, oh yeah, we know this person.
Yeah, they do, that's, yeah, when I had my checkbook stolen, they said the same thing to me.
Wow.
It was not a Waitsfield resident.
Okay, does anybody else have anything for the roundtable? Or then we can go on to the consent agenda, and if nobody objects, we can consider that passed, it's just the warrants and bills payable. And then we could move on to executive session if we have a motion.
Are we doing both attorney-client privilege and personnel?
I think we're just doing, I think we have several, well, we have contracts and then personnel. I don't think there's anything for attorney-client privilege. I think we just have a few different issues of personnel, so.
Okay, so I make a motion to enter executive session pursuant to 1 VSA 313A3 personnel.
Well, second.
Alright, all those in favor?
Hi.
Right?
Alright,